I am Paul Mee from the District Governor-elect from District 9820 Victoria. Our first session today is expanding our reach, but moreover, we would like to assist you with one of your key priorities as a club and as incoming presidents. All clubs are keen to grow and diversify their membership as a priority. This session focuses on providing you with an insight into expanding your reach into the community. As Rotarians, we are keen to promote an inclusive environment within our clubs and to address the equity balance by increasing our female membership and to encourage the fantastic opportunities available to us in the diversity area. We would like you to think about the cultural diversity in the community you represent and how that is reflected in the membership of your club. What actions you can take and that will directly benefit your club. If more people affiliate with Rotary, not just as members, but also as participants in our programs, our youth programs, international programs, or partner with us in our community work, then we'll expand our reach and grow our capacity to make an impact. Let's seek out the new groups and the people in our communities and find ways to involve them in our Rotary action. I will now hand you over to Tim Moore. One of Tim's many roles in Rotary is Learning and Development Chair for our district, District 9820. Tim will lead the next part of this session and will outline the expected outcomes for you from this session. Over to you, Tim.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to a lovely Sunday morning, hopefully in your area. Just to take you through some of the things we hope this session will inspire you with, is to increase your knowledge and understanding of the diversity that exists in our community. Take an honest and transparent look at where your club is now in regard to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the journeys that you have there. And actively seek opportunities to expand your club's reach to include diverse groups and individuals. I'd like now to introduce Grant Cordino from the Rotary Club of Traralgon in Gippsland, Victoria. He's our District Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Chair, President of the Rotary LGBT Fellowship, and next year he's going to be the District 982 Membership Chair. So I'll ask you all to please welcome Grant. Morning, Grant.
Morning, Tim, and thank you everyone for having me here today. I just want to acknowledge that I'm presenting today from Wurundjeri land here in Melbourne, and I pay my respects to elders both past, present and emerging. So there's been a lot of talk lately in Rotary about these three words: diversity, equity and inclusion. So I want to talk a little bit about that today as both incoming membership chair, but also chair of the LGBT Fellowship and a gay person myself. This is something that is really close to my heart. So a little bit about what it's all about and some tips and tricks, I should say, to take back to your clubs today to really increase your reach. So first of all, a little bit about, well, what actually are these words? What is diversity, equity and inclusion? And you'll often see it shortened to just DEI. So you'll know what that means. Often here in corporate Australia, we just use D and I, diversity and inclusion, but Rotary's very purposely picked three words and three very specific words for how we will implement this strategy within Rotary. So by diversity, we mean the presence of people from all backgrounds, cultures, experiences, and identities. So that's just having the people there. By equity, we mean striving for the fair treatment of opportunities for and advancement of all Rotary participants. So if we set something up that everybody is able to access, and that could mean something as simple as, have we got wheelchair access for somebody that uses a wheelchair? Do we have interpreting or translating services for either someone that's hard of hearing or someone that speaks another language, or could be even something a little bit more complex, like do we have a gender neutral bathroom option for someone that doesn't identify as either male or female? And the last one there, by inclusion, we mean the ability to create experiences for and foster environments in which all people feel welcome, respected, and valued. It's those last three words that I really love as part of that last one, inclusion: welcome, respected, and valued. And when somebody walks into your club, do they feel those three things, no matter who they are or how they identify? And like I said, Rotary's been really purposeful in choosing these three words because they acknowledge that we as an organisation have some action to take, and that we need to do the work to make ourselves diverse, equitable, and inclusive. This is what the RI Board of Directors said about our commitment to DEI. I won't read through it, but I will point out a few really important bits. There's this bit in the second paragraph. Well, the first paragraph's talking about Rotary and our goals. That's pretty standard. We've probably all seen that before. The second bit is talking about how we celebrate and encourage contributions from everyone. The third paragraph is quite important though. The third paragraph talks that historically, we as an organisation haven't done a great job in DEI. It took a act of not the High Court, you know, that really high court in America. Can't think of it right now. The word will come to me in 10 minutes. That to let women into our organisation. So it's acknowledging that we haven't done a good job in the past, but making a commitment that we will do a better job in the future, and acknowledging that we're on a DEI journey as an organisation, that we'll all continue to learn and do better. So that's what RI has said that we will all commit to doing. So I really encourage you to jump online and have a look at that. I think it's this slide where I've got, nope, I don't. I will give you the web address in a minute, I promise. Now, to create that statement, Rotary created a DEI task force. They were going to put a plan together that addresses the current state and articulates the vision. So the vision was what we just had a look at there. Acknowledging that there's regional differences. DEI will look very different in a place like India or the Middle East, for example, than it will here. They acknowledge that the plan will focus on all areas of DEI, and the commitment is the first aspect of delivering on that plan. So that was the commitment we looked at on the last slide, and acknowledging that we all have a role to play. So that's what the DEI task force that RI has set up, and there's a couple of Australian members on that task force as well. So what can you do to actually start your DEI journey in your club to really expand your reach? So some tips and tricks now, because I've done the what is it, what's it all about? So now how do you do it? The first step is pretty simple. It's about having conversations. We do that in Rotary all the time. We were doing it this morning. As I was coming in, I was hearing people talk about their new Imagine Rotary thing. We always have conversations. And I would just say, don't be scared to start having conversations about DEI. There's no wrong answers in any of this. In order to understand the challenges that exist for people that might look a little different, leaders at all levels, club, hey, that's you guys, presidents, districts, hey, district governors, I know you're there, zone and international, need to stay connected to what it means to be someone in that group. So ask local diverse groups to speak at your club. Do you have a disability action group in your area? I guarantee you that one of your local schools that is a disability school probably has a little group on the side that is campaigning for more resources and more stuff at that school. So find that disability group, find the local queer youth group that's being run by your council. There's lots of groups that promote and do activism work for diversity. And there's a lot of companies out there that will do work to make your community more inclusive. Look for them, ask them to speak at your club. Rotary International has some really great educational resources. And there's groups like the LGBT Fellowship, which I'm president of. There's groups like action groups. There's lots of Rotary organised groups and resources out there for you to have a look at. And I would say that the first place you should look for those resources, here's that link that I promised you before, rotary.org/DEI. So that task force that we'd started, that we talked about, that has started, put a whole heap of really, really awesome stuff together. They made a DEI code of conduct that is the foundation of everything. This is how we will act. This is what we will do. They've put together a whole lot of stuff in the My Rotary Learning Resources Centre. There's a great diversifying your club assessment, and there's lots of other suggestions and actions that you can take. So jump on that website when you get a chance, have a little bit of a look at the resources there and start discussing them in your club. Use them in a club assembly. Have a think about what the actions that you're going to take and the conversations that you're going to start at your club. Tip 2, set a meaningful public example. Small gestures like putting a rainbow or Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flag or the rainbow heart at the bottom of your website, acknowledging country at the start of your meetings, or using Rotary's statement on diversity, equity, inclusion, make a really bold statement that we accept everyone. So there's a couple of examples there. There's the 3 flags. The Department of Health here in Victoria actually has all 3 of those flags that permanently sit on the bottom of their website. There's a quick acknowledgement of country that sits on the bottom of my email signature, actually, that acknowledges country, but also acknowledges us being committed to creating safe spaces for LGBT+ people. And your communities. Set a meaningful public example that will mean something to your community. A couple of examples for you. Traditional owner acknowledgement plaques. I know a couple of clubs that have paid for them to be added to the entries of their meeting venues. We at the fellowship are selling those little rainbow heart pins, so you can jump on and buy one of those and wear them to your Rotary meetings. Putting statements about DEI on your website, and even the little rainbow heart that you'll see at the top on the District 9790 Ryla page. And then the last little tip and trick that I've got for you is support projects that address key issues for diverse communities. I guarantee you that your clubs are probably already doing some of this stuff. I know that lots of clubs do work around homeless people. Did you know that the biggest group of homeless people is often LGBT+ youth that are escaping violence in their families? Equally, women escaping domestic violence. There's a wonderful action group that looks at HIV and AIDS treatment and prevention. That's great for LGBT+ communities, but also for a lot of African communities, for example. Addressing mental health issues. I know there's lots of clubs that do great work around mental health, but did you know that people with a disability and young people are often the most impacted by mental health and have the most trouble accessing services? What can your club do to help them access those services? We know that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have a shorter lifespan than let's say, white people in Australia. And I know that there's some great projects that Rotary run around addressing issues of the eyes for Aboriginal people. So making sure that they have access to healthcare in some of those really remote communities and the things that they need just to stay healthy. So partner with groups. Find groups that are doing this sort of stuff in your community and partner with them. How can we help you? What can we do? How can we as a Rotary club join in and partner with you to do this really, really important work that we know is helping some of the most vulnerable people in our communities? So before I quickly hand back to Tim, my actions for you were conversations, setting a meaningful public example, and then partnering to do some really great projects in the community with those organisations that are already doing that. Thank you so much for having me today, and back over to you, Tim.
Thank you, Grant. And I thank you very much for bringing this forward to, I think a lot of clubs certainly haven't addressed this and maybe not thinking about it, while others are really doing fantastic jobs. So now we have the opportunity to go into some breakout groups, and you will have facilitators that will have these questions. I will pop them into chat in a sec just in case something happens. The questions in essence are, How has your club expanded your reach in the past 12 months? Share some of your examples. And I think if maybe your club hasn't considered this yet, you might want to just think about the sort of things that maybe that grant has inspired you to think about that your club could do. And secondly, what does success look like in this action? So I might now ask Matt if he wouldn't mind just breaking us into breakout groups, and we'll see you back after that. Thank you very much.
Okay, hi everyone. We're back into the main room, and that reminds me, most of you would have been to district conferences and to various district events where we've just come in from a break and the organisers are trying to put us all back into the main room. And well, we've just achieved 207 people back into the main room within 5 seconds. So isn't that impressive? Okay, well, we're now going to go to some breakout room insights. And in the final part of this session, we will now obtain an insight into some of the key discussion points and actions from the various breakout rooms. We have 10 minutes or a bit over to ask 5 breakout room leaders to report back on the discussions in their rooms. So we'll head straight into that. Could I ask Peter Shepherd from District 9800 to give a summary from his breakout room? Over to you, Peter, and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, look, good discussion with the group, and basically some key takeaways from it were that we need to take an audit of what we're currently doing in our local, in terms of reaching out, have a look at what organisations we are currently interacting with and what other organisations are in the local area. To do that, reach out to local council. They're very good at pointing people in the right direction. And if you're like my local council, they point people in our direction on a regular basis. The other thing is to be mindful of getting feedback from those people that you have assisted. So a lot of clubs work with schools at various levels. Take the time to make sure you're bringing the kids or the parents back to get some feedback about how the project worked and what the impacts were, so you can evaluate going forward the success or otherwise of it, but then keeping that connection up. The last 2 things is to be flexible about partnering on an as needs basis. Various disasters and events mean you can partner up for a short period of time. You don't have to have lifelong associations with organisations. We've got skill sets that we can help out with. We need to put them out there when we need to. And last but not least, take the opportunity to publicise what we're doing. It's all good that we're doing all this great work, but we need to be letting people know about it. It's a great way of increasing our reach. Facebook's important, having your banners up when you go out, getting somebody just to write a local report and send some photos off to the local paper. If you provide it, they'll run it for you. So they're the key takeouts that we had from our group. Thanks, Paul.
Well done, Peter. That was terrific. Yeah, the message: audit, interaction, feedback, publicity. Terrific. Thank you very much, Peter. Well, now, and just to remind everyone too, that we're collecting the notes from the facilitators in all the breakout rooms, and all those notes will be collated together so that we can then distribute those to all participants, all attendees today. So we're only listening to the feedback from 4 or 5 breakout rooms, but we'll get you the notes from all of them. Okay, we'll now go to Ian Wakefield from District 9810 to give a summary from his breakout room. Welcome, Ian, over to you.
Good, thank you, Paul, and good morning, everyone. Much of the same sort of deal as what has just been told to everybody, but there was a couple of things that came out of it fairly clearly, and that is this issue of promoting ourselves better behind what we do. And many of the people that spoke about projects, linking projects to inviting people into the club, to finding other projects. They also spoke about, and strongly about, how we promote ourselves. I was told yesterday that, and this is not this morning's, but yesterday, that Facebook was a dinosaur and not used by many of the younger generation. That's something we really need to strongly consider, where we go, what sort of medium we use to promote ourselves or and our projects. One of the things that came through was in the regional areas, some of the things aren't appropriate. Things like notice boards, local notice boards may even be more appropriate than perhaps electronic notice boards. The electronic notice boards may in fact go unnoticed. How do we get people to look at those notice boards? So I think that's probably all I'm going to add, because most of the discussion revolved around more organic operations rather than the electronic information. So that's about my lot, Paul.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ian. Yes, well, you're talking really about expanding our reach, but also the impact aspect as well. Yeah, really good, Ian. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now go to a breakout room leader, Judith Eden from District 9810. It's great to see you again, Judith.
Yes, Paul. Thank you, our former AG over the years. Thanks, everyone. We had a great discussion. The clubs in my group are fantastic. They're doing great stuff. They're having collaborations with the other local groups like the Fire Brigade, the Rural Youth, mountain bike groups. Some of them were one club's using the census data to find out where they're to improve their inclusion. Another club was organising a driving program for the South Sudanese youth, so that was they were getting members from there. And one club's got 5 lifestyle villages in their area, so they are considering going into the lifestyle villages to recruit. And the other thing about, it's all very well to have new members, but then what did your meetings look like? Were they going to be friendly to these and inclusive to these these people? So we've realised that not many clubs have fines, or not always dinner. Some have Zoom meetings and then dinner meetings. There's no sergeant. There was a lot of suggestions about that. Another suggestion was from a lady who's not with us, and she's had to leave, but she said, being from a different culture, don't ask a person, the very first question is not where did you come from. Treat your other cultural people like Australians first, and then maybe later on you might discuss their nationality. So that was a suggestion from her. And the other thing that our group would like to do is to have some guidelines for the DEI coordinator. Are there going to be guidelines? So that's it from our group. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Very good, Judith. You focused on a couple of really important points there. And look, you know, in some ways, what we're doing here is a bit of a cultural change, but lots of clubs and lots of Rotarians are already doing lots of this sort of work. People don't necessarily remember what you say, but they certainly remember how you made them feel. And yeah, you made some great points there, Judith. Thank you. We'll now move on to Justine Murphy from District 9800. Welcome, Justine, over to you.
Thanks, Paul. From my perspective, my team were fantastic, had a great conversation, some great stuff happening. We really, what we're presenting back on really is what success looks like. So that's what I was asked to talk back on. And from our perspective, we said that success in this area will really look like membership that represents the community. So, which for Rotary really is, it's not made up of middle-aged white males. And yeah, so, and one of the guys said, and this is really relevant, is not just that these members are also members of committees and boards, and not just members of the clubs, but are actually in those, management roles as well. And also one of the things that we talked about is the fact that language has moved away from not just focusing on male and female or representative, but actually people of action, and not just talking about genders. And that's kind of moving forward, which would be really nice. And also, once we have equity in the club, actually retaining people, and having a club that has all the right feeling and is inclusive, so that we're actually retaining these members. So they were kind of the key points from us. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Justine. That was a really quick summary. Yeah, the equity discussion, but the inclusion, making everybody feel comfortable within the club. And really, in order for us to retain and continue to engage with our members, they've got to feel comfortable in our clubs, don't they? Certainly, very good. Okay, our last feedback will come from Keith Ryle at District 9800. Over to you and welcome, Keith. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Paul. Good to be here. We had a wonderful group in room 14, a team of 11, and we're also going to be focusing on what does success look like. Interesting enough, several of our presidents-elect or club representatives had a majority of women in their club. So congratulations, Portland Bay in particular, Merle. I think they have 4 token males out of a group of about 24 or 25, but that's not necessarily the norm. Jamison from Sunbury also commented that they've got quite a strong female representation. So that's great. Things are slowly changing. Jeff Carpenter, in fact, mentioned that there was a preconception in his mind that Rotary 20 or 30 years ago was a very select group, probably male, pale and stale was the word we've heard bandied around quite a bit.
Yeah.
And Jeff very humbly described himself as just a dumb carpenter, but he certainly is not that and has done an excellent job. But he was invited to a meeting, as was I, not knowing much about it 20 years ago, and we stayed on. Tim encouraged us to think about having a DEI statement and even small things like acknowledgement of country at the beginning of our meetings, but set some specific goals as to how to relate to diverse groups, get guest speakers from diverse groups in the community. And if I can mention my own club, we have the president of the Somali Women's Development Association speaking by Zoom to our club on Tuesday week. Rowan from Central Melbourne said that the club really needs to look and feel like being part of the community and have speakers that reflect that broad range from the community. And several members spoke about the need to collaborate with important community groups, police, council groups, other citizens groups, and again, the benefit of publicity through social media and the written media if it can be organised. We're fortunate to have the inner city newsletter in central Melbourne that we're now starting to get excellent publicity in. That's probably about enough from me. It was a very useful discussion. So thank you, Paul, and thank you, Team 14.
Well done, Team 14. Yeah, that was terrific, Keith. You must have been writing notes really quickly. You covered a lot of territory there.
No, we had a very lively group with lots of great contributions. So
yeah, thank you very much. And we're drawing to a close for our first session. Thanks, everyone. That was very insightful feedback